From what I'm gleaning from this case, the guy goes across state lines with an AR-15 with his mother and some other idiot in the car to defend himself against what? They're having a protest in another state, and he takes it upon himself to go there, you know, and then he says it's self-defense. No. And that acting job of the crying, I can't even look at it.
Well, this is
that is one of the worst acting jobs I've ever seen.
Pump your brakes, kid. That man's a national treasure.
So wait. Did y'all hear that? This video is brought to you by Extreme Tees. Click on the link below. Make sure you put Kevin in the promo code and you'll get a 20% discount. Yes, he is a national treasure. Welcome to Kevin's Corner, where I try to make some sense out of nonsense. Yeah, did y'all hear my man over there? Pump your brakes, kid. That man's a national treasure. That's how I feel about it. Because when I think of Kyle Rittenhouse, I think of a young man who, in the face of adversity, overcame it. In the face of trying to do something good, and considering his own government and the police force and the mayor and all of them were supposed to be the ones protecting the neighborhood and the community. Instead, this man felt like he had the responsibility to go out there. And while he was out there, he encountered a whole bunch of riffraff. Now, I would think that people like Joy Behar and the rest of them would look at this man as a hero, but instead they're looking at him as a zero. This actress just accused the young man of being an actor. So we got to get to the bottom. We got to get to the bottom of this and find out, is Kyle a victim or is he a villain? We also got to bounce that off of the folks that were shot by Kyle and maybe conclude, were they the victim or were they the villain? Only way we're going to do this, y'all, is to take a deep dive in it, do a little cross-referencing, use a little common sense, draw some conclusions, things like that, things that people that are casual viewers of this, they're not going to do. So that's why I'm going to help them, okay? So we can do this. Now, I want y'all to buckle up because this ride might just get bumpy. And afterwards, please send this video to some of your friends that might be saying Kyle is a white nationalist and he's a vigilante and a domestic terrorist and all of that mess. Let's get into this. Here we go, y'all. Victim or villain?
So this is what Kenosha looked like the night that Kyle Rittenhouse arrived to help defend local businesses.
That doesn't look like a peaceful protest. Whoa. Why are these humans breaking stuff? What results are they trying to get from this? Do they think people are going to respect their protest? Is that fire? This is a peaceful protest? Okay, I see what's going on here. Fire inside the dumpster. All of that. Okay, look at that. I don't know what that was. A rocket launcher? What? RPG? We don't know. So off grid, just looking at the video footage makes me concerned. It makes me wonder what's going on in that city. It makes me think to myself, if I'm trying to get some sleep in that city, if I'm Kyle and I'm staying with my dad or anybody that lives in that neighborhood after 2 or 3 nights of that, not being able to sleep, wondering if you're going to wake up the next morning and all of your furniture gone or your whole business is burned down, that's enough to make me concerned enough to say I probably would feel like I need to do something about this. Because if not, our community will be absolutely destroyed. So now we got a predicate. Now we see that it wasn't just Kyle and all the rest of these folks sitting around thinking of how we can exercise our white nationalism and vigilantism. This was a reason. So right off grip, that makes me think that anybody who doesn't acknowledge that might be a part of the problem and not the solution. They might not be able to see the source of what would drive and draw someone like Kyle and others out to the streets in the first place. But let's continue.
And who clearly still has some trauma to process in regards to what he went through last August. And today on the stand, he broke down.
There were 3 people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
That's right, run.
We're going to just take time for our break anyway. You can just relax for a minute, sir.
Now, I want y'all to notice something. The heavy breathing, all of that. Whether this kid gets off or not, he will be traumatized for the rest of his life. People don't realize it is not easy to take someone's life. Even in self-defense, the reality of seeing someone that was there one moment and now gone forever at your hands, unless you're a psychopath, sociopath, that stuff weighs on you. And this kid right here was 17 when this happened. And you're trying to tell me, like Joey Behar said, that all of that is what? Acting? See, only people I see do stuff like that are Democrats. I don't recall seeing real emotion come out of AOC down at the border with all those kids that was being locked in those concentration camps by Trump. Because if that was the case, she'd be down and crying the same way over the Biden cages. Joe Biden and all of them who takes knees and stuff over George Floyd. I rarely see anybody on the left sincerely crying because they do all of their acting for politics. But this kid is probably reliving that night, thinking to himself, how did I even get out of that? I had a whole mob of folks chasing me like I was in a scary movie, like I was in The Purge. Somehow I managed to get out, but not without some type of consequence. So whether he gets off or not, he's probably looking at some therapy for the rest of his life. Now, instead of having compassion or empathy or taking into consideration all the facts and details, the liberal media decides, let's mock the kid and paint him as the villain. So we have to do a compare and contrast between him and the folks that he killed and see who's the villain or the victim.
In 2002, Joseph Rosenbaum was charged by a grand jury with 11 counts of child molestation, including forcible sodomy.
Oh.
This wasn't, he was 19 and he had a 17-year-old girlfriend. No. He raped children.
Wait a minute.
The victims were 5 boys between the ages of 9 and 11. Ultimately, Rosenbaum was sentenced to 10 years in prison for this. When he got out of prison, Rosenbaum destroyed his ankle monitor, the one he was required to wear. The day he died, Rosenbaum had an open case for domestic abuse.
Okay, now I hate to be prejudging Rosenbaum, but just the fact that I heard that this man sodomized young boys, I pretty much think I might have found one of the villains. I mean, I'm just saying, because you gotta be evil to sodomize 5 little boys. Now I'm wondering if all of the folks in the media took the time for a second to think about that and to say, what kind of person are we dealing with? Do we think we're dealing with a man that would exercise restraint? A man who would have some type of common sense or reason? Or are we looking at a full-blown criminal? Because most likely Rosenbaum, the first victim of Kyle, who's now being portrayed as the villain, this man probably is at that protest because he have those mental disabilities, all of that background. I'm sure the folks that help support, encourage that type of rioting and destruction of the city didn't go out to find a whole bunch of well-educated, smart, rational thinking people to do their bidding. They probably found a whole bunch of people with mental issues, criminal backgrounds, because they don't care. They're already criminals, and then this way they can unleash all of that criminality without consequences because they're doing it for the Democrat Party. And the fact that this man did that, I'm thinking to myself, that might have disqualified a lot of empathy and mercy and stuff for this guy. So we're going to see how that might have played into Kyle's decision and Rosenbaum's decision to go after Kyle. But I'm just going to keep it real with you. Being black, I know there's one thing, a lot of black folks who might be looking at this as racism and white supremacy and stuff like that. That's where they draw the line. You don't mess with the kids. So whether this young man Kyle killed him because of self-defense or not, I'm quite sure if a lot of black folks heard about his background and what he did to kids, might just say, I don't even care why he killed him. That dude needed to go. So I'm going to try to get through hearing about Rosenbaum's background or whatever his name is. But I think we might have found ourselves the first villain. Here we go.
We're defending this guy. Just hours before he threatened to kill Kyle Rittenhouse, Rosenbaum had been released from a mental hospital. He tried to go back to his fiancée, but she had a no-contact order after she pressed charges against him a month earlier for hitting her.
And then he beats women? I don't know about this Rosenbaum guy. He might be a real Bond villain. So he beats women, he rapes kids, and then shows up there. Could it get any worse? Can it get worse with this dude? What else could this dude do?
So this is the man they're telling you was a model citizen.
Let me just remind people of the names of the victims. Joseph Rosenbaum, who was 36 years old. Anthony Huber, who was 26. Gage Grosskreutz, who's only 27 years old, was injured.
What?
These are the victims. These are the people that people ought to remember are the people who were hurt here, not the person who was crying on the stand today.
So, if I'm understanding Joyless Reed, the #1 race baiter on TV, somehow managed to manipulate her way into a show. She is saying that these men that were shot, and we're going to do a deep dive into other two's background too, are the real victims in all of this. And we should commit Rosenbaum's name to our memory because they're the real victims, not Kyle, not the young man who was out there trying to wipe down graffiti that Rosenbaum and all his buddies put out fires that all of those rioters started, all of that. Not him. Not him. We should be going after the kid who tried to stop all of the destruction of their city, and remembering folks like this. Now, isn't it strange how they always support evil, corrupt folks, criminals? Why is it that they defend all of these criminals constantly? They don't even try to look for the good in some of these other people. They don't look for the good in police officers. And that's why we in this mess right here, because Jacob Blake, who assaulted his girlfriend, then was trying to take the kids and a whole bunch of all of that, fighting with the cops, had a knife, all of that stuff. That guy is the one that they want to put on jerseys. They want to tear the whole city up for. And now, here she is wanting me and others to remember these dudes' names. For what? Does Joy Reid, the most pro-black angry soul sister on TV, constantly race baiting, know that this dude raped some young men? Does she know that? Because she wants me to remember his name. Does she know he beats women? Maybe she doesn't know that. Just like Kamala Harris didn't know that maybe Jacob Blake, digitally assaulted his ex-girlfriend and had a warrant to stay away from her. But all that Me Too ran out by the time they got to his ex. So do they know these things, or are they okay with supporting criminals and villains that do their bidding? Well, at least it stops right there, okay? Let's see here then. How in the world is the prosecution going to explain Rosenbaum's background?
So what does he do that night?
Okay.
Oh, let me tell you all the awful things Joseph Rosenbaum did.
Wait.
He tipped over a porta potty that had no one in it.
No one?
He swung a chain. He lit a metal garbage dumpster on fire. Oh, and there's this empty wooden flatbed trailer that they pulled out in the middle of the road, and they tipped it over to stop some bearcats, and they lit it on fire.
Are you patronizing me? Are you kidding me? Now, all of a sudden, prosecutors who are supposed to be prosecuting crime is now making an excuse and downplaying crime. So he's kind of downplaying, the fact that they set fires and did all these things. Is that normal behavior? Is that something we should be looking at and saying that's nothing? I mean, who's to say where that fire could have spread it? Who's to say if those cops were allowed to do their jobs, if that barricade would have impeded it or even hurt someone as they tried to get through it? We don't know. We don't know. And we don't care. See, what this guy's doing is saying, let's overlook all of the norms, all of the real criminal activities and the law, because our agenda to paint this young man Kyle as the villain trumps all of that. So I'm going to use sarcasm and downplay it and say, you know what? That's not equal to what Kyle decided to do to Rosenbaum. But let's finish hearing it. Who knows?
Oh, and he said some bad words.
Like
he
what?
said the N-word.
Telling me.
For 400 years, that word has kept us down.
What the?
Took a whole lot of time just to get up that hill. Now we up in the big leagues. Cannot turn it back. Long as we live, it's you and me, baby.
That's the theme song for the Jeffersons. You really need help.
And just because the theme song don't make it not true.
Yeah, man. Just because the theme song don't make it not true. Where's Joy Reid? Where's Black Lives Matter? Rosenbaum was out there to Black Lives Matter, protest using the N-word. Now, Joy Reid wants me to remember his name. She wants his name on the back of the shirts and all of that stuff. And they're the real victims. As much as she talks about racism, she, I guess, didn't hear about Rosenbaum dropping those words. And then the prosecutor downplays it. That's the #1 theme of the Democrat Party. They're constantly using racism, always fighting against some type of racism. But now he goes, oh, and he happened to use the N-word. So now all of a sudden, that's nothing. I think the real villains might not even be Rosenbaum and the rest of these folks. It just might be that prosecutor, the Democrat Party, the fake news, and many others. But let's not stop there. Let's continue.
What about the other victims? Well, our media tells you a main victim is a guy called Gage Grosskreutz.
Oh.
He's the guy who ran up to Kyle Rittenhouse and pointed a loaded gun in his face. Fortunately, he's never been charged, by the way. That's not a big deal because he votes the right way.
Oh, yeah.
Who is this guy? Well, Grosskreutz, it turns out, also has a lengthy criminal history. That includes an arrest for hitting his own grandmother in the face. Just 6 days before he testified in the trial, in fact, Grosskreutz was in court on a DUI charge, which Joe Biden says is not a big deal, but most of us grew up thinking we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, because I can't get away with that. Not to mention all of these angry folks that wants to see Kyle's head on the platter. They know he beats his grandmother. Do they know that? Does the liberal media knows that this man beats his grandmother? They know he got that backstory. Because it already sounds like he's lining up to be another villain instead of a victim. Unless the real villains are going to try to paint this guy as the victim. Let's see where this goes, Tucker, because it's good to know the backstory of all of these characters in this movie here. See, that kind of helps us to understand their motivation. Here we go.
Several years ago, Grosskreutz was charged with smashing the bedroom window of his ex-girlfriend's home at 4 a.m. On the night Kyle Rittenhouse shot him, Grosskreutz has admitted he was carrying an illegal firearm.
Wow.
Oh, no longer a big deal either. Gun crimes don't matter if you vote the wrong way.
Well, wait a minute. The Democrats been trying more gun restrictions. They've been talking about keeping that guns out of the hands of criminals and background checks. And this guy just violated all of that, and they're not saying anything. Oh, I'm sorry. He gets Democrat narrative privilege. He gets evil being used by Democrats, complete dumb, nincompoop-ish / useful idiot privilege. That's what he gets. So these are rewards that you get when you serve the narrative of the Democrat Party, instead of getting in trouble like the rest of us, like us law-abiding citizens and stuff like that, you get off. But let's go ahead and see how this guy right here, Grossberger, is portrayed in the media and how he portrays it.
To me, it seemed like a child who had just gotten caught doing something that he wasn't supposed to.
You'd agree your firearm is pointed at Mr. Rittenhouse, correct?
Yes. More upset that he was caught and less upset about what he had done and what he had taken.
The prosecution claims this was murder. Kyle Rittenhouse says it was self-defense. So it's pretty simple. But here's the amazing thing. Every single witness the prosecution has called so far has wound up making Kyle Rittenhouse's case for him.
And the numerous lives that he affected through his actions that night.
You'd agree your firearm is pointed at Mr. Rittenhouse, correct?
Yes. Well, I think anytime you see your would-be murderer.
Would-be murderer.
Okay. And once your firearm is pointed at Mr. Rittenhouse, that's when he fires his gun. Yes?
No.
No.
On the stand, it's emotional.
Sir, look, I don't want to... Does this look like right now your arm is being shot?
That looks like my bicep being vaporized, yes.
Okay. And it's being vaporized as you're pointing your gun directly at him?
No. It's being vaporized for no reason. Because this guy right here is the victim. Didn't y'all see him on all these other liberal networks talking about how, you know what, he's sensitive and all of that. And this guy, he got caught because, I'm the real victim here. And they vaporized my arm for no reason because my arm has a mind completely of its own. And just so happened my legs sat back and said, you know what, even though that kid's running away from me and he also has an AR-15, We're going to go chase him. And I tried to tell my legs, what are you doing? Don't do that. We could get our whole arm blown off. And my legs said, shut up, and start running after him. And then my arm told me, hey, I'm going to go ahead and side with the legs and pull the gun out. And I told my arm, don't do it, man. It's not worth it. You're going to get yourself vaporized. And my arm said, yeah, right. Bang. And I had to look at my arm and say, told you so. See, because he's not responsible for all of this. No. Even though he just tried to lie and say, nah, that's not true, and now he has to retract it. But he's the victim.
Yes?
Yes.
When you were standing 3 to 5 feet from him with your arms up into him, advanced on him with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, then he fired, right?
Let's see.
Correct.
Correct.
Anthony Huber.
Y'all hear that? Correct. Now, do we even need to go on anymore to find out who the victims and who the villains are? Oh, well, combating all of these narratives coming out of the fake news, we better be very thorough, because they're not just going to conclude and take all of these surrounding details and the fact that this guy made a confession to come to the final conclusion that Kyle might not be the villain. He might be the victim in this application. So we better go ahead, because there's a third so-called victim that Joy Reid wants me to remember his name. So let's get into this third victim.
Sort of the last guy, Anthony Huber. He's the man who hit Kyle Rittenhouse twice in the head with a skateboard. Who is he? Yeah. He's a convicted domestic abuser. According to court records, Huber once told his brother that if he didn't clean a room in his house, he was going to, quote, gut him like a pig. Huber said that while he was holding a 6-inch knife to his brother's stomach. What? Then he grabbed his brother's neck and said this, quote, I'm going to burn this house down with all of you in it. You got to be kidding me. Huber pleaded guilty to 1 count of strangulation that time.
Why in the world can't the Democrats get some civilized folks without criminal backgrounds to show up at their, their protests and the rallies? And because the civilized ones won't go out there and do the things that all of these guys with criminal backgrounds would do? They have enough common sense to understand they would be useful idiots being used to destroy property in people's neighborhoods so that the Democrats can push a narrative of racism, white supremacy, white nationalism, and to win elections and stuff. So the regular folks got enough common sense. So we somehow managed to get 3 dudes with all kind of criminal backgrounds down there, all claiming they're fighting for justice and black lives and all of that stuff. And yet these 3 dudes with this horrific past are the victims. Well, let's get into some of the details, like the media has not done.
In a posting on its website, PolitiFact claimed that Kyle Rittenhouse had committed a crime by carrying a firearm in the state of Wisconsin. Here's the quote. Okay. It is against the law in Wisconsin for someone younger than 18 to possess a dangerous weapon. Period. Now, you notice in that statement, complete unwavering certainty. And this is common for PolitiFact, which issues opinions like they're edicts from God himself. They do this because the social media companies reward it. Social media companies use PolitiFact's edicts as a pretext to censor any speech online that contradicts the official line of the Democratic Party, the so-called narrative. So if PolitiFact disagrees with what you're posting, then you are by definition spreading misinformation and you must be silenced. So naturally, other media organizations echoed this position immediately. Kyle Rittenhouse, 17, declared the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, was not old enough to legally carry the assault-style rifle he had, just stating it as fact. And then the entire national media followed suit and told us the same thing. The problem was, it was a lie. In fact, under Wisconsin law, which apparently no one in any newsroom in America had even bothered to check, 17-year-olds are allowed to carry rifles as long as their barrels meet a minimum length requirement, and Kyle Rittenhouse's rifle met that requirement.
So wait a minute, Tucker, are you telling me that they've been portraying Kyle as the villain that for some reason decided to break the law, get a gun that he wasn't allowed to carry, cross the line, state lines, and go out and just become a vigilante? And don't forget, he's not just a vigilante. He's also an active shooter, a white nationalist, white supremacist, and all of those things. So they've been saying that the victim is actually the villain, Tucker. Please tell me that's not true. Tell me these networks with all of these resources, all of these folks that look up information, took 1 second to go and find out if the gun that he was using was actually against the law to have. Please tell me they didn't do that, Tucker. Don't tell me they've been lying to us this whole time. What?
So no, Kyle Rittenhouse did not violate Wisconsin's gun laws. Today, even the prosecution at the trial was forced to admit that.
Okay.
And so immediately the judge dismissed the firearms charge.
As he should.
Not a short-barreled shotgun or a short-barreled rifle, yes.
Either by barrel or by overall length?
Correct.
All right. And then count 6 is dismissed.
Ooh, well, that couldn't be clearer.
Not
the
at all.
prosecution is admitting in open court that it was legal. He had not committed a gun crime. And that means that for more than a year, big tech and its lackeys throughout our media have spread misinformation about Kyle Rittenhouse.
So is this the same misinformation in their guidelines that they shut my channel down for 2 weeks because they said I was sharing misinformation, only to find out later my misinformation was actually true, right? So we're now starting to put some things together. Perhaps the people who are trying to write the script, they're the authors of the novel, they're directors of the film, are painting a picture that the villains are actually the heroes and that the hero is actually the villain. Thank God that I got common sense and enough tenacity to look up the details. It's unfortunate though, because we got a lot of ignorant people out there mad for nothing right now. Let's continue.
Well, that's embarrassing. What are they going to say? Well, they're not going to admit it, of course. They're going to make certain you don't learn about it.
Wow.
Just minutes after the judge in the case dismissed the gun charge, YouTube, which is owned by Google, censored the video streams of several independent legal experts who were commenting on the trial in real time. These were knowledgeable attorneys, many of whom were critical of the obvious weaknesses in the prosecution's case.
Okay.
Now, hundreds of people were watching those streams at the moment they were canceled. But concerned that Americans might conclude that Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent, YouTube shut them down, citing, quote, policy violations. In other words, God forbid people think for themselves. That's not allowed anymore.
No.
If you want to know what's happening in your world, you've got MSNBC to tell you.
Here we have a 17-year-old kid, underage, said he bought an AR-15 because he thought it was cool. He drove across state, had his mother drive him across state lines. He appointed himself a militia member. He goes around and he ends up unloading, what, 60 rounds?
Now, you know, if I'm a casual watcher of fake news, I probably would say, yeah, sounds like this kid is exercising white privilege. He's going to get off only because he's white. Not to mention, though, that he killed all white people, and the one white guy who testified against him with the arm that got vaporized is white and should be in court on the gun charge, but he's not. So how do you explain him not being in trial? And then the white privilege, I guess, didn't get Kyle out of this pickle, did it? Or is it Democrat narrative privilege? Is it useful idiots to the Democrat privilege that all of these folks are getting? Because surely it's not white privilege. And then according to Beaker right here, that's all Kyle's motive was. I want to buy a cool looking gun, drive across state lines, and just go to shooting up a whole bunch of people and waste all kind of ammunition. Because I guess he's an active shooter too. Well, let's see if Tucker can help us out with that.
Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't a militia member. He was a lifeguard. Kyle Rittenhouse did not fire 60 rounds, not even close to that. He was not underage. As we just told you, he was in legal possession of his gun. But most amazing is the claim, which you're hearing everywhere right now.
But first, Tucker, before you get into that, so let me get this straight. The young man on trial is not a child molester. He did not put a knife to his brother's throat. He has not committed no arson. He has not assaulted no women. He is not guilty of a gun charge. None of those things. He didn't molest no kids. None of that. And yet he's the evil person. He's the villain. I don't know about this one, man. My common sense is starting to kick in. If it hasn't now, it ain't gonna kick in for you. But let's continue.
That Kyle Rittenhouse is bad because he, quote, drove across state lines.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Think about that for just a second.
Okay, 1 second.
So the very same people who have told you for years that borders are by definition white supremacy now claim it's some kind of moral offense for an American citizen to enter a contiguous state. As Kyle Rittenhouse explained on the stand last week, when mobs set fire to Kenosha, he had every reason to want to defend the city because his father lives there.
What? Now, you mean tell me they didn't take a second to find that out either? Because that's been the main talking points of the nasty, stinking, dirty, crooked liberal media and the Democracy. Because they've been saying this kid done went across state lines like it was like 50 miles away. No, it was only a couple. And then they didn't tell us that he, has kind of like dual citizenship. His dad lives there in the mom. They didn't say all of that. And then, of course, they've been saying, he acquired this gun illegally, shouldn't have had it and all that. And now we're finding out that that charge got dropped. That leaves them with what? Nothing but made up narratives. Nothing but propaganda. Okay, so now let's see how they're going to make this victim look like the villain.
Isn't it true when you would hang out with Dominic Black, you'd play Call of Duty and other first-person shooter video games?
Sometimes.
Isn't one of the things people do in these video games try and kill everyone else with your guns?
Yeah, the video game, it's just a video game, it's not real life.
You indicate that you have your AR-15 to protect yourself, correct?
Yes.
And you indicate that you're going to run out there and treat anyone who needs medical help, correct?
Yes.
If you didn't think there was friction with the crowd and you're out there trying to help, why did you expect there'd be any danger?
From the previous nights when I saw people being assaulted.
Yeah, maybe all the fires and the burning and the people getting beat up and the chaos that was this country, maybe that was why you brought some. People bring guns hoping they'll never have to use them. That's why people buy guns. It's for protection. If you have a gun, hopefully you'll never have to use it.
So let me understand this, guys. This raggedy prosecutor, that was his attempt to make the real victim look like a villain because of video games. So the kid made this grown man look stupid. Like, dude, it's a video game. You're trying to make it seem like that video game inspired me and made me say, you know what? Unlike real life, okay, I can go out and shoot people just like in the video games and they'll come back to life. There's no consequences. That's what he's trying to make the argument of. And then he tries to belittle Kyle's observation skills, all of our observation skills, because in the beginning, we just saw a montage of the whole city being burned down. All of these things is taking place in that city. And Kyle was supposed to go in there like a naive person in a scary movie. Now, it doesn't look as suspicious here. All of that burning and scrapping and fighting and destruction of property looks pretty peaceful. Let's go in and take a look. Wow, this prosecutor sucks. But they don't want to just leave it in the hands of the prosecutor trying to make this kid look like a villain. The media had to step back in and do their best too. So let's see what, here's Beaker. Beaker and his girlfriend is back now.
State, a boy from out of state drives up to the state with an AR-15 around his neck, shoots and kills a couple of people.
Pump your brakes, kid. That man's a national treasure.
Shooting wildly, running around, acting like rent-a-cop.
That it ain't funny.
And it's not good that a 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, picked up a rifle, drove to a different state to shoot people.
You about to cross some line.
Now see, isn't that crazy, guys? We just sat back and went through all of that information. And somehow the media's interpretation of all of that information that we just watched together, all of that evidence that we just watched, understanding the backgrounds of all these people, the intentions of Kyle, the fact that he was running away the whole time and only shot when necessary. And yet the media have concluded that he could possibly be a domestic terrorist, vigilante, white supremacist, and all those other things. So maybe perhaps the real villains are the media. The real villains are the prosecution, the state legislator, the people who allowed this city to burn, that would even put this kid in a position to feel like he even got to go out there and do that. Maybe those are the real villains. And then the three folks that Kyle shot are the sub-villains, the folks that's just a product of the fallout of them using these idiots to go in and do their bidding. But we're going to close out with the lady with the rocks in her throat and smokes probably 8 packs of cigarettes a night. And that is Whoopi Cushion and the 5 people on her little panel. I call them they're the Jive. That's all they are. They're Jive. They're not the 5. They're not, whatever, the View. Yeah. Let's see if the View has a clear view on what's taking place here. Let's go. And then I'm going to fake as if I'm really there just to clean up the community and protect businesses because our leaders allowed this stuff to happen. I'm going to fake like that by taking pictures of me washing graffiti off of walls and testimony of me bandaging up people's ankles and things like that, trying to put out fires that Rosenbaum and all the rest of them set. And then at the end of that, that's when I'm going to unleash my diabolical scheme to just start killing folks. And they'll have no idea that I'm really an active shooter because, see, I'm going to be a passive active shooter. I'm going to be an active shooter just running away from the people and not towards them. I'm going to be an active shooter that limits the amount of people that I kill, only the ones that I have to kill that appears to be threatening my life. And see, that allows me to be an active shooter that's very selective. Very selective. Instead of me just posting up in a tree somewhere and picking people off, or as they were all running away from me and just shooting them. No, not me. Not me. I'm going to restrain all that racism, activism, active shooterism, and all of that. That's what I'm going to do according to Whoopi Cushion. But here's this other guy, a reasonable black man on Tucker's show that got a different take of why all of this stuff is controversial. And this young man right here, instead of them looking at this young man, Kyle, through the lens of the evidence, they're looking at him through the lens of what?
On whether 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse traveling across state lines to take up arms before killing 2 men and wounding a third during a night of social justice protests and unrest were acts of self-defense, or was it vigilante murder?
Now, first of all of that sarcasm is not necessary, Whoopi Cushion. So Cushion seems to think that Kyle just jumped in his car, say, you know what my goal is today? Is to go across state lines, illegally obtain a gun, and just go to killing folks. And I guess I'm a vigilante now. There's not going to be any consequences for that. Because you know why? Because I'm going to have my white privilege. And I can kill all of these other white folks in cold blood with no motive, no predicate to kill them or shoot them, none of that stuff. I can do all of that and get away with it. That's my mission.
Everything in this country is interpreted through a racial lens. Led by the mainstream media. We've been trained, programmed. The mainstream media and social media have trained us to look at everything through a racial lens.
Yeah. Everything? No, come on, bruh. So you can't tell me Whoopi Cushion and the rest of those witches that sit on that panel is going to somehow work in some type of racism or something, or some type of stupidity in this application. Because last I checked, and we just learned through going over the background of all of these so-called victims, that all of them were white. So how in the world can they even come up with a narrative? No gun charge, didn't kill no black folks, didn't cross state lines to go kill folks because his father lives there as well. Okay, so what else could they come up with? Let's see.
So the jury is deliberating as we speak. Okay. So, I mean, how do you see this ending? I think it's really
with an acquittal.
A red light for white folks coming to help at social justice protests. Because basically what they're saying is, oh, it's okay to shoot white people too.
That's a new law. That right there's a new law of prostitution. That's a new law of stupidity. So you can't get Kyle on no racism, white nationalism, and all of that. No gun charge, none of that. So the best you can do, Cushion, is to come up with, well, I mean, the way I see this, with those rocks in that voice, is they are setting a standard where you can just kill white people that's protesting with black people. So they're now concerned about white on white crime, right? White on white crime. This is one of those cases where now it's your mission to be dumb. Now it's your mission to paint a negative narrative. It's your mission to run right through all of your common sense, all of your evidence, all the stuff that we just went through. It now becomes your mission. You're committed to the fakeness of this whole narrative, that you are going to concoction this new theory up since all the other ones failed. Still trying to make Kyle out to be the villain and not the victim. Thank God we got these two people right here that is a voice of common sense and reason.
You have 4 white people. Kyle Rittenhouse and 3 victims or 3 people. They're all white.
I feel you, man.
And we're still, so now we're more concerned about white on white crime.
Yeah, that's the new narrative.
And somehow we've racialized that.
It is funny,
but black on black crime, let's ignore it. Let's never talk about it. Anybody that brings it up is a sellout, an Uncle Tom, a racist. But this white on white crime, this is now a national case and somehow says is a referendum on race in America. It's a joke, Tucker.
And it is. Thank you. Thank you. It is a joke, Jason. It's a joke, Tucker. We all know it's a joke. The whole trial is a joke. It should have never been brought to court. It should have never even gotten to the point where Kyle even was there, because the people in charge should have stopped this mess. But no. See, they let this mess go on for days. Now, what I don't understand is when Trump tried to send some help down there to stop all of this, the mayor rejected it and said he's proud of his decision. So he would rather let his whole community burn and be destroyed than to accept help from Trump, and also to impede the fake narrative that racism is on the rise, white supremacy is on the rise, the cops are systemically racist, and they shot Jacob Blake for nothing. Now I'm starting to notice a trend that the Democrats are the ones who are creating these scenarios and situations. And then somehow the media backs them up by painting all of these villains as victims and the victims as villains. And yet, as we close, I mentioned this during my live show. When help is supposed to be sent to stop all of this mess, they reject it. Why? Think about January 6th. Trump tried to send backup to make sure everything was safe. Nancy Pelosi, who was in charge of security, rejected that. Now, they're saying Trump is an insurrectionist. He inspired it, and all these people were insurrectionists, and they were trying to overthrow our government. Why would Trump do that? Why would he want to send support to keep people safe, to stop anything from jumping off? Why would he do that? Wouldn't that make the insurrection a lot more difficult if the National Guard was there to impede it? You, if anything, you would have been like, how about you get rid of all of the police, send everybody home so we can have free reign to run in and storm the castle and take it over. But yet he tried his best to send help to stop things like this from developing. And the person who's running around blaming Trump and saying he inspired the insurrection rejected that help, just like this mayor did. And what did it lead to? Surprisingly, all of this chaos. I think we found our real villains. Now, God bless you. God bless America. God bless this young man. If he does not get acquitted, this will be a travesty. And they will use this mess to go after anybody that's a lawful gun owner and believes in the Second Amendment and also believes in self-defense. So we're going to see what happens. And we'll get back with y'all, because I'm sure tomorrow they be done concocted a new villain. See y'all next time in Kevin's Corner. Take care. Now, God bless y'all. Don't forget to hit that like button, share my videos. Also, don't forget to donate if you like Kevin's Corner. There are links in the bottom of this video. Check out Extreme Tees, my sponsor. If you like the products, put Kevin in the promo code. You'll get a 20% discount. And what else? Oh, find me on Rumble in the Jungle. All right, God bless you all next time in Kevin's Corner. Take care.